She had not simply landed between enemies, she was connected to the every things they are feared facing. That knowledge did not give her peace, it gave her responsibilities. And the responsibility at her age is a cruel gift. Fedme, meanwhile, was dealing with a more personal struggle. Her growing love for issue made her brave in some moment and deeply vulnerable in others. She wanted a simple life, but simple life was not on offer here. Every smile she shared with him seemed to come with a warning behind it. Every happy moment felt borrowed. Issue sensed this and tired to carry some of that burden for her. He jogged, he assured, he stood near when words failed, yet inside he too was changely. Loving someone in a broken place forces growth. He could no longer stay half boy, half man. He had to decide what kind of person he would become when pressure came, and the pressure did come. When whispers began linking their names more openly. Reactions followed quickly. Some mocked, some warned, some acted as if wrong love itself were an insult to family order. That was when Ishu stopped trying to please everyone. In a quiet but firm movement, he made it clear that he would not yet other speak about Fedme with disrespect. The room changed after that. The people saw that he had crossed an inner line. He was still warm, still human, still himself, but now there was still in him too that mattered. While these personal bonds deepened, Sheriff schemes grew darker. He could feel control slipping, and that made him more dangerous. Men like him are most cruel when they feel the ground move beneath them. He tightens his grip on information. He pushed where others were weak. He used anger, money, family pride, and emotional blackmails as tools. If one pressure failed, he tired another. He told himself he was preserving other orders. In truth, he was protecting his own place inside the lie. Zerfi also grew harsher during this stage. Fear for family often turned into pressure on family. She believed she was keeping disasters away, but the more she forced, the more cracks appeared. Love without listening became another form of damage. Still, she was not empty inside. That was what made her tragic. Rather than simple, her action hurt others, yet they came from a heart terrified of losing what little control reminder. Hikren watched all of this with increasing pain. She knew too much and said that too little. Many people think silence is safer than truth, but silence also has weight. It sits on the chest, it steals sleep, it turns on every kind of people into helpers of harm. Hikren had reached that point. Her loneliness was no longer just emotional, it had become moral. She could feel herself begin pulled between loyalty and consciousness. The breaking point came through a chain of events, not one single moment. A hidden truth got too close to day night. A planned trap began to close. A family celebration turned into a stage for humiliation. A private wood mound became public, and in the middle of it, Esme was forced to make one of the hardest choices of her life. Sheriff tried to use her again, not only as a person but as a message. He wanted to turn her moves against him into a punishment for the whole Cherokee side. If she stepped away, he would wound her reputation. If she stayed, he would trap her deeper. Either way, he wanted victory. But Esme did something he had not prepared for. She chose herself openly. In a place where women were expected to bend, negotiate, or hide, she took a clear stand, not quietly this time, not in hints, not in half steps. She rejected the path laid out for her. She refused to keep carrying, crying, a carrying chain made by other people's fear. That decision shook the town. Some called her brave, some called her shameless, many called her dangerous. All of them, in one way or another, were admitting the same thing. She had broken the script they wanted her to follow. Adil stood by her, said side in that moment, and standing beside someone in public mattered differently than loving them in secret. It is one thing to feel deeply, it is another to accept the cost of being seen. When Adil chose to remain beside Asmi despite the fire coming their way, to crossed a line of no return. For the first time, they were no longer only two people with shared history. They had become a challenge to that all false order around them. That was powerful, that was also dangerous. After that, retaliation came fast. Sheriffs set harsher plans in motion. The Korkari side faced growing threat. Fear moved through homes like cold air, through broken windows. Even people not directly involved began to suffer. When powerful lies start collapsing, they do not fall cleanly, they fall onto whoever is nearby. They were taught to betrayal, talk of punishment, talk of consequences. The town was began to divide more openly. Some said enough was enough. Others clung harder to the old position. The long fight, once hidden in custom and silence, was now standing in broader daylight. Elni felt this change sharply. She knew the truth. She carried out either free people or destroy what little balance remained. She was still young, but life had given her no choice except to mature quickly. She wanted to love, belonging, and safely like anyone else. Instead, she found herself holding pieces of a history adults has failed to face. One night she broke down not because she was weak, but because the weight was too much. Esme found her and sat with her in silence before speaking. Sometimes comfort beings without word. You do not have to carry all of it alone, Esme said. Eleni looked up through tears. What if everything changes when people know? Esme answered with painful honesty. Everything has already changed. People just have not admitted it yet. That line became the truth of this whole chapter. By now, the story was no longer about whether change would come. It was about what shape that change would take. Would truth heal or shatter? Would love survive or drown? Would the wrong inherit freedom or the same old cage? Fedimi and Ishu held on to each other more tightly. During this period, their bond became a quiet answer to the cruelty around them, not because they sold anything big, but because they refused to become hard. In the dark stories, Tenderness is not small, it is rebellion. Adil and Esme too moved closer to honestly. Their conversation stopped hiding behind all politeness. They began speaking of regard, fear, memories, and what was still possible. It was not sweet, easy love, it was scared love, but scared love can be stronger than pretty love because it has already seen pain and remainder. At the last, under the pressure of all these events, the town reached its emotional breaking point. Nothing was stable anymore, not the houses, not the lies, not the distance between the lovers, not the silence around the truth. The sea outside kept rising, and the inside people were rising too. The final clash was coming, and when it came, no one would be able to return to the life they had before. Session 4. When the heart overflows. Every long fight believes it can go on forever. It cannot. At same point, the cost becomes too visible. Too many people suffer. Too many secrets rot. Too many nights pass without peace. That was where the town stood now. The old system had controlled everyone for years, was shaking from inside. The lies were tired, the people were tired, even the anger looked tired. But anger can still be dangerous. Sheriff made one last major move, the kind of move people make when they think losing is worse than destruction. He no longer cared about the balance or imagine in the same way, but he wanted to hurt, confuse, and pull everyone down into the chores with him. If he could not win cleanly, he would make sure nobody felt victorious. This final stage brought fear into every house. Doors were closed earlier, messages were passed in whispers. People who once stayed neutral now had to choose. These revelations did not come in one neat speech. Truth rarely does. It came in fragments, in confrontations, in tears, in half-finished sentences completed by someone else, in documents, memories, and reactions too strong to fake. One hidden fact opened the door to another. One exposed lie made an older lie collapse beside it. Elni stood at the center of much of this. Her existence, her questions, and her refusals to remain blind forced older people to face what they had buried. She was no longer only the hurt child with a strong posture. She had become witness, and the witness is powerful. At first, adults still tried to shape the story around her, but that no longer worked. Too many pieces were already in motion. Too many people had seen too much. The time when one strong voice could control the whole room was ending. Hikran finally reached her own limit. Carrying silence had become heavier than carrying truth. In a moment of emotional honesty, she let out what she had held inside for too long. It did not fix everything, but it mattered. Every truth spoken by someone who had once stayed silence weakens the rule of fear. Zarif also faced the mirror at last, whether through grief, shock, or the collapsing world around her. She had to comfort the reality that protecting family through force had not actually protected anyone. That kind of realization is painful because it attacks the story a person tells themselves to survive. She was not transformed into softness overnight. Life does not work like that, but cracks formed in her creativity. and through those cracks came something more human than control regards. As for Serif, this downfall was not only about being exposed, it was about being understood. Once people clearly saw that his games came from hunger for power and not real care for family. His image weekend fear still followed him, yes, but fear mixed with clarity is different from behind blind fear. Blind fear obeys, clear fear beings to resist. The Kokari side suffered deeply during the last conflict. There were moments of loss, moments of destruction, moments when it seemed as if the final price would be too high. Homes, bonds, and bodies all carried the marks of this stage. No one walked through it untouched. Yet suffering also forced honesty. People spoke truth they had buried. Children saw adults more clearly. Lovers stopped hiding. Crowds were revealed. The town itself changed. Fedme and issue became one of the strongest emotional thread in this closing movement. Their case for each other stayed alive even while chaos spread around them. They had been tested by fear, family, pressure, and danger, but what they felt had not disappeared. In fact, it had become more rooted. What began as warmth grew into commitment. Their stories offered something precious, proof that the next generation did not have to repeat the worst of the last one. Ellie's journey too moved from confusion toward painful strength. She did not get a simple happy ending. People like her rarely do, but she gained something just as important, knowledge of who she was. What had been hidden from her was what and where she stood in the story. Clarity cannot erase pain, but it gives pain a shape that alone can save a person from drawing inside it. And then there was Esme and Adil. Their love had survived distance, silence, old family hurted, and repeated attempt to break them apart. But survival alone was not enough. Now they had to decide what kind of future to build from the runs. Love that exists only in longing can stay beautiful from afar. Love in real life must learn daily courage. In one of their final major conversation after truth had spilled, shaken almost beyond recognition, Asmi stood by the sea with Adil again. The same seemed a changed life. For a while, neither spoke. Then Esme said, I used to think if I let myself feel everything, it would destroy me. Adil answered softly. And now she looked at the water. Now I think holding it back destroyed me more. Adil let those words settle. He knew better than to rush them. I can't give you a life without storms, he said. Esme gave a faint smile. They would not suit you anyway. No, he admitted, but I can give you truth. I can stay. I can stop running. She turned to him. In her face, there was sadness, love, memories, and sometimes new choice. Not pressure, not fate alone, choice. That is what I need, she said. In that moment, their bond changed. It was no longer only built on past feeling, it became built on present decision. That is stronger. The ending of such a story cannot be called fully clean or fully happy. Too much had been lost for that. Some wounds remained. Some relationships could not return to what they once were. Some people paid too much. Some apologies came too late. That is the truth of the deep family dramas. They do not end by erasing pain, they end by deciding what pain will no longer rule. The town moved forward but differently. Old powers was weaker. Hidden truths were known now. Younger hearts stood with more courage. Women who had been expected to bend had shown they could stand. Men who thought control was strength had been exposed. Love had not solved every problem, but it had refused to die under the weight of pride. And the sea, as always, kept moving. It hid the shore in waves, then pulled back, then returned again. The town would still hear storms, life would still bring loss. No story can promise endless peace, but something important had changed beneath the noise. The people who remained were no longer living the same lie. Esme walked forward with more selfhood than before. Adil walked beside her not as a savior, not as a shadow from the past, but as a man finally willing to build truth in the open. Elni carried pain, yes, but also identity. Fedme and Ishu carried hope, were forced to face what they had done. In the end, the title itself became the meaning of the story. A seed does not overflow in 1 second, it fills slowly, drop by drop, storm by storm, pain by pain, and love by love. And then one day it rises past the line that once held it back. That is what happened here. The anger overflowed, the secret overflowed, the grief overflowed, but so did courage, so did truth, so did love. And when the hurt finally overflooded, nobody could live and the old way anymore. That was the cost, that was the freedom, that was the disaster. The Sackboo After the storm passes, the silence feels strange. That was how the town felt now. For years, noise had ruled everything arguments, whispers, hidden plans, and loud pride. But now, after truth have come out and broken many illusions, people did not know how to see still moved. Shops still opened, but something inside the people had changed. Some walked slower, some spoke less, some looked at each other with new eyes. Because once truth is seen, it can't be unseen. Esme felt this change deeply. She walked through the same roads she had known all her lives, but they no longer felt the same, not because the place had changed, but because she had changed. The fear that once followed her had lost its grip. It was still there in small way, but it not longer controlled her step. For the first time in years, she felt like her life belonged to her. That feelings was new, and the new feelings can be both freeing and scary. Adil noticed this too. He saw how Esme moved differently now, less graded, more certain. It made him respect her even more. At the same time, it made him careful. He knew this was not the time to rush anything. They had survived the worst, but building something new required patience. Love after pain needs time. One evening they sat together quietly. No one is watching us today, Adil said. Esme looked around. They are just don't know what to say anymore. Adil smiled slightly. That's new. Yes, Esme replied. Before they always know what to say, but my life. And now they don't control it. And that small exchange showed how far things had come. Across the town, Elni was trying to understand her new reality. The truth she had uncovered had given her answers, but it had also taken away the comfort of not knowing. She now saw clearly how people had failed her, how choices made before she was even aware had shaped her life. That hurt, but it was also gave her strength. Instead of asking, "Why me?" she started asking, "What now?" That question pushed her forward. She began spending more time alone, not in sadness but in thought. She wanted to build a life that was not only based on the past, she wanted something of her own. She saw for someone who had lived between broken lines. This was a powerful step. Fedme and Ishu, on the other hand, found themselves in a softer space after the chores. Their bond had survived pressure, fear, and judgment. Now they had a chance to breathe. But breathing did not mean everything was solved. They still had to face reality, family expectations, futures, plans, and the questions every young couple eventually faces. Can love survive real life? One day, Fedme asked Ishu directly. What if things get hard again? Ishu did not answer quickly. He thought, then said, "Then we stay, not run." Fedme looked at him carefully. "You are sure?" "I was not before," he admitted, "but now I am." That honestly made her trust him more, because real strength is not pretending to be fearless, it is choosing to stay even when fear is real. Meanwhile, Seraph was not finished. Even after everything, even after losing control and being exposed, he still believed he could rebuild his position. People like him do not give up easily. They adopt, they wait, they look for cracks, and the cracks always exist. He began moving quietly again, but this time his power was weaker. The town had seen too much. People no longer trusted him the same way. His words still carried weight, but not unquestioned authorities. That frustrated him more than open defeat, because losing power slowly is harder than losing it all at once. Zarif also struggling with the aftermath. For years, she had lived with the belief that control was protection. Now she had to face the truth that her actions had hurt the very every people she wanted to protect. That realization did not make her suddenly soft, but it made her quieter, and sometimes quiet reflection is the first step toward change. Hikran, for the first time is in a long while, felt lighter. Speaking the truth had not solved everything, but it had removed a heavy weight from her heart. She still had to face consequences, still had to rebuild trust, but at least she was no longer living a lie inside herself. That mattered more than comfort. As days passed, the town slowly began forming a new balance. Not perfect, not peaceful, but different. The old fear based system was weaker. The new system was not yet fully formed, but people were learning step by step how to live without the same level of control and silence. It was messy, it was unconcerned, but it was real. One day Esme stood again by the sea alone. The waves were calm this time. She closed her eyes and felt and let the wind touch her face. For years these plants had left felt like a witness to her pain. Now it felt like a witness to her freedom. Adil walked toward her slowly. "You come here a lot," he said. Esme nodded. "It reminded me that everything moves." Adil stood beside her, even pain. "Yes," she said. if you let it. He looked at the horizon and laughed. Esme turned slightly toward him. Love stays, but it changes. Adil understood what she meant. Their love was not the same as before. It was deeper, stronger, but also more careful because now they know the cost of losing it. Behind them, the town continued to live. Children played again in the streets, women spoke more freely, men argued less loudly. Not everything was healed, but something had begun. A new chapter, one not written by fear alone, but by choice. And that made all the
Everyone say it is unfortunate. Aunt Freya snorted that is because a fallen man is a tragedy and a fallen woman is entertainment. Each went quiet. Then, after a while, she said, "I have been thinking about what you once told me." Denise looked at her. "Which part? I've told you many unpleasant things." Each almost smiled, and that I knew how to disappear. The wind moved greatly through the yard. "I think he said slowly, you were right." Denise did not rush to comfort her. Truth given too quickly comes petty. He continued, "I used to think survival was, maybe because I was what happened when women wanted more, but now." She looked around toward the road, toward the town beyond it. "Now I keep wondering what kind of life survives by never really living." It was a question Denise had once asked along. Hearing it from East felt like watching another stone shift in the world. Her mother visited twist that month. Quite visits tea swimming, a little talk, some tears, favor silence. Her father still did not come often, but once he sent fresh fish through east with no message except he caught them himself. I was a small offering from a man not built for direct tenderness. Denies accepted it as such. Then on a late afternoon, washed gold by sun, he came to the yard while Aunt Denise was writing inventory figures at the table. He stood awkwardly, a hat and a hand which saw so unlike him that Denise knew at once this was not a casual call. I heard the constable questioned him again, he said. Yes, he nodded. Aunt Freya did not move from the vines. "You can speak plainly here," he said, not bothering to soften anything. Her father gave her own look, then turned back to Denise. "I should have believed earlier," he said. Denise waited. "When women like that circle a woman," he continued, "people ask what she did to invite it." I said those things too in my head, had may not allowed, but still his face tightened with the shame of admitting his own ugliness. I was wrong. Denise felt something inside her go very still. He looked at the ground once, then frowned, smiled himself to go on. You were not the danger. The danger was what this place teaches a man to excuse. That sentence from his mouth was almost unbelievable. No poetry, no great emotional performance, yet it may have been the bravest thing he had ever said. Denise stood up slowly. Why are you telling me this now? He met her is because a fa- father should not learning the truth of his daughter from the edge of losing her. The silence after that was deep, to told ear. Then Denise stepped closer and said the simplest answer the cloud give. Thank you. He nodded once as if gratitude was harder for him to bear than uh, exhaustion before leaving. He added, "Your mother wants you for dinner next week. No pressure, only if you wish. It was not come home. It was if you wish, and what difference meet everything." Summer opened fully after that. The sea turned brighter, the town slowed under heat. The market recovered. Denies work grew. She began saving money in a tin box beneath her bed, some for herself, some for a possibility. She did not yet know what form possibility would take, only that if it mattered to have one. Aras wrote. The first letter came 3 days after his arrival, short, practical, fully of detail. She had asked for the room he returned, and the noise of the city and smell of iron and rain near the harbor district. The job difficult but promising at the end. Only one line changed her breathing. I still hear the sea in the shell at night, and it sounds like your refusal, painful, right, and alive. She read that sentence so many times the paper softened under her figure. More letters followed over the weeks, not every day, not too little, either honest letters as promised. Some spoke of work and ex housing, Hashan. Some of loneliness, some of the strange freedom of beginning again in a place where no one knew your childhood face. Denies wrote back in the same spirit about the market repairs. Her mother's visit is changing. thoughts her father's careful attempt the way the evening light now fell across Aunt Freha's kitchen in investigation the quiet strength she sometimes felt and sometimes lost dis, uh, distance with something unexpected. I did not weaken them, it revealed them without touch, without habit, without the years of daily presence. What remained between them had the days before Friday felt sharpened by farewell. Every ordinary thing became more visible because it might soon be missing from the shape of her life. Aras came by once more to help with repairs at the market. They worked side by market, passing tools, lifting boards, speaking little because too much sat underneath. Even the smallest sentence, once their hands touched when both reached for a bundle of nails, neither pulled away quickly, neither made a scene of it. Some closeness had grown strong enough not to require display. At home, Aunt Freya watched Denise with the following patience of someone who had buried of her own hopes in the past to recognize how love and timing can would differently than cruelty ever does. You can still change your mind, he said on evening while trimming green beans. I know. Will you? I don't think so. Good Aunt Freya said changing your mind from fear is no better than never choosing. On Thursday, Denai's mother sent another note. Rough is. Can you come tomorrow morning alone? Denise read he line 3 times. She went. The family house looked smaller than she remembered, though. Preface it was only that she no longer approached it as a trapped daughter. The door was open. Her mother waited in the kitchen. No aunt, no father, just the two of them, and the familiar smell of tea, cumin, and old wood. For a moment, memory nearly swallowed Denies whole. He saw herself younger, setting plates, waiting for moods, hearing life decided in another rooms, but the feeling passed. Her mother poured tea with trembling care. I said that he is leaving tomorrow. Denise sat down slowly. Yes, and you, I am staying. Her mother studied her face. That hurts you. Yes, but you still choose it. Yes. Her mother looked down into her cup. Then, maybe you are stronger than I ever was. Denies Braid's couch. No, she said quietly. Maybe I just got hurt eagerly, to refuse becoming you. The sentence was sharp but not cruel. Her mother received it with painful honesty. I now the worshipped silence sat with them. Not easy silence, true silence. Then her mother did something accepted. She rose, went to went to the wooden cupboard above the counter and brought down a small cloth bundle. She placed it on the table between them. And what is this? Denies asked. Open it. Inside were gold earrings, not elaborate, but old and beautiful in the quiet way of things kept through hard years. Denies looked up, surprised. They were my mother's. Her mother said she gave them to me when I married. I kept them hidden even when money grew light. They are the only thing that ever felt like mine. Denies throat lightened instantly. Why are you giving them to me? Because now they should be yours. I can't that these. Yes, you can. Her mother's is filled, but her voice stayed steady. A woman must have something in this world that no one else decides for her. I learned that too late. Maybe you don't have to deny. Could not speak for several seconds. Then she reached across the table and held her mother's hand. I do not hate you, she whispered. Her mother broke, then tears spilling openly. I know that is what hurts the most. They held each other for a long time in that kitchen, not not as not as a woman who had solved everything, as woman who had finally begun telling the truth. When Denise stood to leave, her mother said, your father knows you came. Denise stiffened slightly. Her mother shook her head. He stayed away on purpose. That surprised her more than it should have. At the door, her mother added one final thing. If he goes and later asks for you, not as a resource rescue, not as a permission, but as a partner, do not refuse yourself happiness just to punish the past. Denied held those words careful on the walk back. Friday came bright and mercilessly clear. The station was small with peeling paint, tried benches, and the usual mixture of urgency and boredom that leaves around departures. Men with bags, women giving final instruction, children dragging their feet, seller of tea, the ordinary machinery of living. Denise arrived early and still found Aras already there, a single worn bag beside him. He looked both ready and not ready at all. You came, he said. I said I would. They stood facing each other while life moved around them. For a while, neither knew how to begin goodbye. Words felt either too small or too dramatic. Finally, Aras said, I almost stayed anyway. Denise gave him a sad smile. I know you would have hearted me for that eventually. Yes, he 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 lodged softly. Probably the train had not arrived yet. They had minutes, maybe less. Aras looked at her deeply as if trying to memorize not just her face but the version of her standing. Her the woman who loved him and still chose herself in the same breath. When should I write? He asked. When you arrive. And after that, she thought for a moment. When you have something true to say. He nodded. That sounds like you. She reached into her bag and took out a small object uh, wrapped in cloth. It was the white shell from her old room, the one she had carried through everything. Aras started. You are giving me this. No, she said. I am lending it so you come back and return it. That broke the tension. You know. For both of them to smile with yet ease. The train whistle sounded in the distance. Everything inside Denise pulled in two directions at once. Run with him. Stay where you are. Call this strength. Call this loss. Call this the price of becoming someone who life belong to herself. Aras stepped closer. I love you, he said simply. I know that is not an answer. She swallowed hand. I love you too. The words later settled between them with the weight of promise and pain together. When the train rolled in, the station filled with noise, calls, steam, motion. Bags lifted, goodbyes, uh, sharpened by schedule. Aras picked us his bag but did not move immediately. Denies he said, do not stay only because it is difficult. Stay because it is yours. You nodded, tears finally slipping free, and you do not build a life there that forgets who you are here. He understood then because the moment asked for no more waiting. He kissed her once, briefly, fully in dealing in public, not as a secret, not as a shame, not as a scandal, a goodbye between equals. People may have seen, surely some did, yet them. He he boarded, denies, stood on the platform as the train pulled away the shell. Now in his pocket, the air full of metal and smoke and absence. She did not run after it. She did not collapse. She stood, and when the train became only a line moving into distance, she turned and walked back toward town. The weeks that followed were not empty. That was the strange thing. She accepted heartbreak, heartbreak to make everything pale. Instead, life demanded itself daily. The market repairs continued. The shopkeeper, grateful for her steadiness through the fire, offered her more responsibility. Soon she was not only helping with the accounts but ordering stock, speaking to suppliers, and managing sales. On busy days, her confidence depended into something visible. People began asking asking for her by name too, because of gossip, by because she was capable. The investigation investigation into the fire also moved forward slowly, with all the frustration of smaller towns and weak institution. But forward. Two boys repeated their statements. The space seller spoke more firmly. A discarded cloth soaked in lamp oil was found near the back wall. Under pressure, one man admitted Seam had asked strange questions about the strong storage sheds a day earlier. Nothing dramatic happened. No grand arrest under thunder, but the district authorities finally called him in for formal questioning. That along changed the air. A man like Seam survived on confused once suspicion become public. Once people began looking at him the way they had looked at denies for months, his power shrank. He stopped appearing in the lands, stopped smiling in public, stopped acting as if other people's lives were toys. One evening, Isa came by with the news and sat with Denise in the yard while Aunt Fariha knitted nearby. You know what is strange? Is said, what? When everyone thought badly of you, they were almost cheerful about it. But now that people are Denise did not decide that morning. She tried. She stood by the stone wall until the sky turned fully gold, and she asked herself every question a person can ask before changing a life. Was staying courage? Was living courage? Was love becoming another road into dependence, or could love in the right hands become a place where two people stood beside each other without one disappearing inside the other? She had no easy answer. The sea in the Distance looked calm, but calm water often did hid dangerous pull underneath. Denise knew that better now than ever. When she went inside, Aunt Fariha was already awake, kneading dough with both hands, as it as if the woods storms could be answered through bread. You look like you spent the night arguing with the ghosts, she said without looking up. I spent it arguing with the futures. That is worse. Denise sat at the table. Her whole body felt heavy, but her mind was too sharp to rest. He asked me to go with him, she said. Aunt Fariha continued kneading and I do not know. Good. Denies frowned. Good. Yes, only falls now. Immediately when the Dacian is this large. She pressed the dough harder, then added, if you were ready to follow a man by sunrise after one kiss and one fire, I would very. I thought you nothing. Denise gave a tired, unwilling smile. Aunt Freya finally looked at her. So let us separate, spirit the threads. Do you want to go because you are afraid of staying? Partly. Do you want to stay because you are afraid of going? Yes, that is us less. Fear sides on both cares. Move it inside and ask again. Denies lowered her ears to the wooden table. Do you love him? Aunt Fariha asked. Denise did not answer at once. Then, with more quiet certainty than before, Denise did not answer at once. Then, with more quiet certainty than before, she said, "Yes." Do you trust him? Yes. Do you trust yourself with him? That question stopped her. It went deeper than whether Aras was good, kind, patient, or honest. It asked whether Denise believed she could stay herself even in closeness, whether she was ready to carry her own key, as Aunt Fariha once said. After a long silence, she answered, I think I am learning too. Aunt Freya nodded. Then the real question is not whether you love him. The real question is whether living now would make your truth smaller. That sentence sat heavily in the room because Denise knew it was the center of everything. If she left right after the fire night, after the kiss, right after months of fighting to be seen as more than scandal, the town would fold her whole life into a simpler story. She did all this for a man. They would erase the bruises, bruises, the pressure, the work, the dignity. She rebuilt piece by piece. They would turn freedom into romance because that version was easy, and yet staying only to prove them wrong was also a kind of prison. I hate that they still matter, denies, whispered. Aunt Friha whipped flour from her hands. They always matter some. We live among people not above them, but they do not have a mattermost. That some afternoon denies went to the market to help short what had survived the fire. The damage was heavy but not total. Some stalls were ruined, others were smoke blacked yet standing. Men carried broken planks away. Women swept ash into pails. The shopkeeper moved like someone half in grief, half in calculation, already trying to understanding how life could how life could continue. Denies threw herself into the work, shorting goods, checking which leaders were saved, helping count damage stock. There was comfort in action again. A burnt market still required hands, and hands were sometimes wiser than thought. By Medi, a constable from the district came to take statement. Questions moved quickly through a crowd. Who saw what when the smoke started? Whether anyone noticed stranger near the back lane? No one said comes name loudly, but his shadow was there. The boy who swept behind the stalls repeated what he had seen. Another vendor mentioned a coat. The spice seller said Sim had been near the alley that evening and looked to interest in the fire for an innocent man. Nothing was proven yet, but suspicion had begun hiding into shape. When Denise returned home that evening, Is was waiting outside Aunt Riha's gate. Her cousin looked restless, almost embarrassed, which was unusual for her. Is was not a woman who liked being unsure. I came to tell you before you heard it from others. She said, told me what? Your father and seem hard words in the square. Denies started. What is nodded this morning? Someone said, father. She stopped and corrected herself. Your father had about the fire to go looking for him. A shock ran through Denise. Did they fight? Not exactly, but nearly. People stepped in. The image rose clearly in her mind. Her father, proud and furious, comfort, confronting the man who may have endangered her life not because he had become holy just overnight, but because some lines once seen could not be unseen. A daughter no longer living under his roof was still his daughter when danger touched her. What did he say? Denise asked quickly. Each gave a small, almost incredulous love. From what I heard, he told Sim that if he ever stood near you again, he should pray the law reached him before family did. Denise sat down on the low stone edge beside the gate because her legs suddenly felt weak. He looked at her carefully. You did not expect that. No, Denise admitted. Neither had is clearly. For a moment they were silent, then each said more softly than usual. Things are changing. Denise looked up at her cousin. Are they? Yes, each said slowly, badly, but yes. It was perhaps the most honest thing is hard even ever said to her. That night Denise thought again of fathers, of man, men, of pride twisted into protection and protection twisted into control. Her father had failed her deeply, but perhaps even a damaged man could still choose a direction. After the damage became undeniable, not to erase, never for that, but to alter the future. It was a difficult thought. She did not trust it fully, yet it stayed. The next morning, Aras came early. He looked tried to no sleep seemed common in everyone's life now. Well, he asked gently. Well, Denise replied, I still do not know. He smiled faintly, though worry remained in his face. That sounds honest. They walked toward the sea road again, not because the place held answers, but because both of them had become used to thinking better near open water. The morning was pale and windy. Waves rolled under a sky half covered in cloud. Denise pulled her shovel tighter, tighter and stood watching the foam strike the rocks below. I need to say something clearly, she began. Aras waited. I love you. The words came simpler than she accepted, not dramatic, not fragile, just true. Aras shook his ears briefly as if the sentence had landed somewhere long empty. When he looked at her again, she continued, but I cannot live like this. He said nothing yet. I cannot walk out now with smoke still rising behind me and let this whole place decide that I was always only heading toward you. That would break something inside me. Aras took that in without flinching. Thou, disappointment moved through his face. Denise stepped closer, listen fully. He said, I am not saying to you, no to you. She said, I am saying no to disappearing into a simpler story than my own. The wind pressed her dress lightly against her legs. The sea below moved with its old patient force. I need to stay longer, she said. The make one thing clear to myself, if to no one else. I can stand her as myself first, not as a daughter sent away, not as a woman carried off by love myself. Aras looked at her for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice held sadness and admiration together. I knew that might be your answer, and I hate it, he said with a small, helpless smile, but I respect it. That made her ears sting. He continued, they want my answer by Friday, so give it, and you. Denies exhaled slowly. I stay for now. The words hurt, relief, and pain mixed strangely in them, because staying was right, and because right did not mean easy. Aras nodded once, then I go. She had known he would say that, still hearing it made the world shift under her feet. Neither of them moved for a moment. Then he said, come to the station and fried. He tried to smile. It is that a request or an order? A hope. She nodded, then yes. The days before Friday felt sharpened by farewell. Farewell. Every ordinary thing become more visible because it might soon be missing from the shape of her life. Aras came by once more to help with repairs at the market. They worked side they worked side by side, passing tools, lifting boards, speaking little because too much sat underneath. Even the smallest sentence once their hands touched when both reached for a bundle of nails. Neither pulled away quickly, neither made a scene of it. Some closeness had grown strong, not to require display. At home, Riha watched Denise with the knowing patience of someone who had borrowed, of her own hopes in the past to recognize how love and timing can wound differently than cruelty ever does. You can still change your mind, she said one evening while timing green beans. I know. Will you? I did not so. Good. Aunt Freya said, changing your mind from fear is no better than never choosing. One Thursday denies mother sent another note through is. Can you come tomorrow morning alone? Denies read the line 3 times. She went. The family house looked smaller than she remembered. Through p- perhaps it was only that she no longer approached it as a trapped daughter. The door was open. Her mother waited in the kitchen. No aunt, no father, just the two of them and the familiar smell of tea, cumin, and old wood. For a moment, memory nearly swallowed Deni's whole. She saw herself younger, sitting plates, waiting for moods, hearing life decided in another rooms, but the feeling passed. Her mother poured tea with trembling care. I heard. She said that he is leaving tomorrow. Denies sat down slowly. Yes, and you? I am staying. Her mother studed her face. That hurts you. Yes, but you still choose it. Yes. Her mother looked down into her cup. The maybe you are stranger than I ever was. Denies breath breath couch. No, she said quietly. Maybe I just got hurt eagerly, to refuse becoming you. The sentence was sharp but not cruel. Her mother received it with painful honesty. I know wish she whispered. Silence sat with them, not easy silence, true silence. Then her mother did something unexpected. She rose, went to the wooden cupboard, cupboard above the counter, and brought down a small cloth hand bundle. She placed it on the table between them. What is this? Denies asked. Open it. Inside were gold earring, earrings, not elaborate but old and beautiful is the quiet way of things kept through hard years. Denise looked up in surprise. They were my mother, her mother said. She gave them to me when I married. I kept them hidden even when money grew light. They are the only thing whatever felt like mine. Denies. Throw, throw it tightened instantly. Why are you giving them to me? Because now they should be yours. I can't take these. Yes, you can. Her mother is filled, but her voice stayed steady. A woman must have something in this world that no one else decides for decides for her. I learned that too late. Maybe you don't have to. Denise could not speak for several seconds. Then she reached across the table and held her mother's hand. I do not hate you, she whispered. Her mother broke then, tears spelling openly. I know that is what hurts the moment. They held each other for a long time in that kitchen, not as women who had solved everything, as women who had finally begun telling the truth. When Denise stood to leave, her mother said, "Your father knows you came." Denise stiffened slightly. Her mother shook her head. He stayed away on purpose. That surprised her more than it should have. At the door, her mother added one final thing. If he goes, and later asks for you, not as a rescue, not as a permission, but as a partner. Partner, do not refuse yourself happiness just to punish the past. Denise held those words carefully on the walk back. Friday came bright and mercilessly clear. The station was small with peeling paint, tied benches, and the usual mixture of urgency and boredom that lives around departers. Men with bags, women giving a final instruction, children dragging their feet. Seller of tea, the ordinary machinery of living denies arrived eagerly and still found Aras already there a single worn bag beside him. He looked both ready and not ready at all. You came, he said. I said I would. They stood facing each other while life moved around them. For a while, neither knew how to begin. Good goodbye words felt either too small or too dramatic. Dramatic. Finally, Aras said, "I almost stayed anyway." Denise gave him a sad smile. "I know. You would have hated me for that. Do you want to stay because you are afraid of going?" "Yes." "That is useless. Fear sights on both. Care move it aside and ask again." Denies lowered her ears to the wooden table. "Do you love him?" Aunt Freya asked. Denies did not answer at once. Then, with more quiet certainty than before, she said, "Yes." "Do you trust him?" "Yes." "Do you trust yourself with him?" That question.
The sea looked calm for far away, but everyone in the village knew that calm water could lie. In this town, waves did not only break on rocks, they also broke inside home, inside heart, and inside old family names that had carried angry for many years. The people here had learned how to live with storm, but they had not learned to live with peace. At the edge of the village stood the old harbor. Boats moved slowly with the morning wind. Fishermen shouted to each other. Women carried baskets. Children ran over stone as if the world had no dangers in it. But adult not better. In this town, no one wrong word could become a fight, and one old memory could become a fire again. Ilni arrived on such a morning. She did not come like someone looking for attention. She came quietly, carrying a small bag and tired face. Her eyes looked strong, but they were pain behind them. She had the face of someone who had traveled far, not only a road but inside herself too. The village looked at her the way villages always look at stranger, with question first, kindness later. Someone thought she was just another visitor. Some said he was running from something. Others said she must be foolish to come alone to place where two families had turned life into the far never fully ended. But Ilni had not come by mistake. She had become because her mother last word had brought her. Before dying, her mother had held to her hand with great effort and said, if you ever want the truth, go back to the sea, go where the wind never forget, go to the place where your life began. That was all. No long story, no name, no full answer, just enough to leave a wind open forever. So Ilni came to the Black Sea coast, to this town where everybody seemed to know each other and everywhere smile carried some history behind it. She had no clear plan, only one hope lived inside her. Maybe this place would tell her who was she really was. Not far from the harbor, a man stood watching the boat. His name was Adil. Adil was known across the villages as a hard man who did not speak more than needed. He was not a cruel, but he was closed. The sea had shaped him. Loose heart shaped him more, and worked with his hands, spoke with his eyes, and trusted every few people. In a place full of loud men who wanted to look a strong, Adil did not need to prove anything. That made him more dangerous than most. He belonged to one side of village, old fight. On other side stood another strong family led by people who had not forgotten the blood, pain, and shame of the past. The name of those families carried weight. The children grow up hearing stories of insult and revenge. Their elder kept old pain alive as if they were a duty. Adil hated that life, but he was also trapped inside it. He had seen that family pride could destroy. He had seen people use love as a weapon and silence as punishment. He wanted a simple life, but simple things did not come easily to him. Even he smiled, it looked like a something he had bought for every short time. That morning he saw Ilni near the harbor. She was asking an old fisherman about a woman whose name no one had heard in many years. The old man fisher looked confused, then nervous, and he told her no nothing and walked away too quickly. Adil noticed he was about to turn away, but something like Ilni face stopped him. Maybe it was the way she refused to leave after rejection. Maybe it was the hurt in her eyes. Maybe it was because strangers did not usually ask such a old question unless they were tied to buried truth. He walked toward her. You are not from here, he said. Eileen looked at him carefully before answering. That is clear, I think it is, and people here do not like caution for outsider. Then I came to right place, she said, because I have many. Adil, most like almost. What are you looking for? A woman, Ilni replied. Oh, maybe not just a woman, maybe a story, maybe my own. Adil strutted her face. He had heard many strange things in life, but something about the world felt real, not dramatic, no false real. This village is full of the stories. He said most of them hurt. He did not come here from comfort. That answer stayed with him. Before he could say more, shouting rose from farther down the harbor. Two young men had started another fight over space, net, and insult tied to their family's name. It was never only about one thing in this town. Every small problem cried the shadow of the older hated. Adil moved fast and pulled one of them back before knives or fist could make things worse. Ilni watched as he ended the fight without losing control. He did not shout for long. He simply used for when needed. The older other listened. That all told Ilni everything she needed to know. This man was not ordinary. People fired him a little, respected him more, and watched him as if his choice mattered. When the noise ended, Adil turned back, but Ilni was gone. She had walked toward the market road where old house sat close together and women spoke from behind window as if the street below belonged to them. She stopped near a tea house, looked around and felt the same thing again. This town knows something about her. She could feel it. The owner of a small guest house agreed to give her a room for a few nights. The woman was kind but curious. She asked where Ilni came from, if she had family neighborly, and why she had chosen this village of all places. Ilni gave carefully answers. By evening, the village had already begun making stories about her. Some, she said, was daughter of rich family from the city. Some said she was a journalist. Some said she had become one of the village men. One even she had come to take revenge of something old. No one guessed the truth. That night, Ilni opened the small box her mother had left her. Inside was necklace, an old hand craft chief was faded stitching, and photo are so damaged that only part of it remained clear. A child, a woman, the sea behind them, and on the back one word written by hand, Mavi, blue, or maybe name or maybe a memory. Ilni touched the word again and again. She felt close to something but not close enough. She wanted to scream at the past of hiding from her. The next morning she went to the cemetery, old cemetery, tell truth that living people hide. Name data ties loose. She walked slowly among the stone covered with salt, wine, and time. Someone graves were kept somewhere nearly forgotten. She stopped when she heard footsteps behind her. It was Adil. She asked question. Here in the harbor now you search the dead. He said you are brave or you do not understand this place. Maybe both. Who told you to come here? No one. I choose it. Then choose carefully. The past her is not sleeping. Ilni turned toward him. Why do you care? Adil was quiet for a moment because strangers was touch old pain usually become a part of it. That answer did not scare her. It interested her. She looking at him but more closely. There was pain in him too, not loud pain, buried pain. That pain changed how to person breathe. Did the place take something from you? She asked. Adil looked away first. It takes from everyone. Before she could continuously, woman voice called Adil from the road. It was Asim. Asim was no one strongest woman in the village. She came from other side of the family food and but carried herself with such a force that even men who disliked her word still learned. Life had not been soft with her. She had learned early that caring so little with the world wants to crush you. She protected her family firstly, even when they made foolish choice. She did not trust easily. She did not trust strangers the least. When Asim was illness standing near the Adil, her face changed, not with a simple dislike, with shock, a very fast hidden shock. It was passed so quickly that Adil did not notice, but Ilni did. Asim recovered herself and asked coldly, "Who is she?" "No one," Adil said. Ilni lifted her chin. "My name is Ilni." Asim started at her again. A strange silence grew between them. The Ismi said, "This town eats people who come with secret." Ilni replied, "Then maybe it should start with the people who already live here." Ismi gave a dry smile. "You speak too much for us, someone alone, and you look too worried from someone who says I don't matter." That light hard. Ismi stepped closer, but Adil moved between them before movement could turn ugly. After few more cold word, Ismi walked away, yet she looked back once, and fear in her eyes did not look small. That fear followed Ilni for the rest of the day. Why had Ismi reacted that way? Why did her face look like she had a seen ghost? Ilni returned to her room and studied the old photo again. The woman beside the children could not see fully. The sea was behind them. A piece of house stood in a corner. Could the house still exist? Was it in the village? She began asking older people about place near the shore where blue painted house once stood. Most ignored her. Some laughed. One old woman crossed herself and told her to stop searching before the buried night rays again. That sentence gave Ilni no peace. Meanwhile, the balance inside village was breaking. Another ways to old angry between the families was starting to raise again because of land fishing right and one unfinished insult from years ago. Men were meeting quietly at night. Rumors were moving faster than wind. One small push could turn everything ugly. At the center of those dark movements stood Safri. Safri did not need to raise her voice to make people uneasily. He was one of those men whose smile never reached his eyes. He understood power better than kindness. He knew how to use fair money, promises, and secret. If Adil carried silence like a shield, Safari carried word like a knife. He had waited a long time for this moment to grow stronger in the village, and now he could feel it come. When he first heard about the strangers asking questions, he wanted to know everything. "Who is she?" He asked his man. No one know clearly. No one answered, but she kept asking about old names. Safari learned back and thought old man was dangerous, very dangerous. Because some truth, if they returned, could back much more than pride. He sent someone to watch Ilni. That same night, Ilni walked alone near the shore. She did needed air. She needed distance from wall and eyes. Half answered. The moon was low and waves hit the black rocks was heavily sound. For the first time since Come hearing, she felt afraid, not because of sea, because of people. She heard movement behind her. She one returned to two men stood near the path, too late to walk alone. One said, "I can choose my own time." Ilni replied, "Maybe, but some place reject outsiders." She stepped back slowly, her body warm to cold. Then another voice cut through the dark. "Leave." It was Adil. He came toward them with kind of claim that words of violence. The men hesitated. They know him. One matured something under this breath, but both stepped away and left. Ilni let out the breath she had been holding too long. Adil looked angry. "Do you think this is a game?" "No." "Then stop acting like you are untouchable." She met his eyes. "I am tired to being afraid." That answered him harder than he accepted. The sea crashed behind them. For a moment neither spoke. The Ilni asked softly, "Why did you come?" "I told stranger who touched all the pain part of it." "That is not real answer." Adil just a tight. "The real answer is worse." "Tell me." He did not insist. He said, "There are people here who would rather burn truth than face it. And you, I don't know yet." They stood side by side looking the sea. Two lonely people, both carrying unanswered questions, one searching for the first start for her life, the other unable to escape the life of he already had. Ilni said, "My mother sent me here before she did. She wanted me to find something or someone." "Do you know who?" "No." "You came with no name." "I came with a broken photo, a necklace, one word, and feeling that I was never told who I am really." Adil looked at her, truly looked at her. For the first time, something something in her story disturbed him by deeply, not because he understood all of it, because a small part of him already feared with it might light. Back in the village, Asim could not sleep. Sleep she was Ilni faced. It was a possible, she told herself. Years had passed. The dead state, that lost children did not return as a woman with searching eyes, and yet fear sat inside her life stone. She opened as old chest hidden under blanket and clothes. Inside were letter cloth and one dini shoe wrapped carefully in white fabric. Her hand shook. She had not touched these things in years. She worshipped to herself, no, it cannot be here. But her voice did not sound certainly. Far away, Surfi sat in his own house with a glass in hand, smiling to himself. He could feel the ground moving beneath everyone. Fate and men like him loved broken ground because that she was where to build their power. The storm had not come yet, but the sea was rising, and before long it was inside everyone's house in the village. The next day changed the life in a small but dangerous way. Nothing exploded at all once. That is not how to real trouble work. It began with eyes that do not stop watching, doors that close fast, names worshipped in a corner, and face that grow tense whenever one certain person entered to the street. Ilni felt all of it. The village had not accepted her, but it had also not pushed her out. It was studying her, testing her, measuring how too much trouble she might bring. She decided not to leave. Every new silence made her more sure that she belonged to some hidden part of this place. A person only get avoided that much when she is near a truth people of far. She kept walking, kept asking, kept looking. She wanted to older tea house where retired fishermen and vendors spent their long morning. She asked about women who disappeared, children take away, fear storms, family backup, or any even connected to the sea for many years. Most gave her nothing. Some acted like they could not hear. She offered confusing stories that ended now here. But one old man with a shaking hand told her this year ago one children who was said to be a lost. Some called it accident, some called it punishment, and some said the sea it looked her. But I do not believe the sea takes without human hands helping. Before Ilni could ask more, Manson came out and shut the door. That single sentence was enough to keep her mind burning the whole day. A lost children, was it her? Was the she looking for a death that had never really happened? By afternoon she went to herself. By workshop near the shore was board was repaired. Adil was there working with wood darkness by salt and age. He did not look up right away, but he knew she was there. She walked toward dangerous too easily, he said. And you noticed too quickly. Adil kept standing a roughly edge of the plank. She could leave before people decided your question cost too much. Then help me ask the right one. He stopped working and finally faced her. Why do you think I know anything? Because your face changes every time I speak of the past. That proved nothing. It proved enough. He looked annoyed, but she also saw this something beneath it. It was he was not annoyed because she was wrong. He was annoyed because she was getting closer. Adil knew more than he wanted to admit. Not full answer, not enough to solve everything, but pieces he had dropped. Hearing self-sentenced strangers wearing and names of the people that older men refused to explain. He knew a woman once disappeared from the village. He knew a child was a part of that story. He knew several people had lived with guilt affair, but the truth never been given to him clearly. Like Ilni, he had entered silence. He put down the wood and said, there was a bad night many years age. People still avoid speaking of it. What happened? I was young. I remember fire, shouting, bought rain, and when nothing straight. After that, no one wanted children to know who was involved. Families still that have power now, that is enough reason for you to stop. But Ilni did not stop. Then I am not leaving. Adil started at her, then looked away. He should have walked off. He know that a clever man would have, but something in him had already chosen otherwise. Perhaps because he admired her courage, perhaps because he was tired of living inside other people's lives, or perhaps because she had entered in life too suddenly, too deeply for him to stay untouched. There is an old house near the upper road, he said quietly, but shelter empty now. It belonged a woman who left after the storms years ago. If your photo matter started there, Ilni breath catched. Why did you not tell me before? Because I was hoping you would give up. She almost smiled. Bad hope. That evening, that was the lighting fading into grave. Ilni claimed by the upper road. The house stood exactly as Adil had said, empty, salt eaten, quiet. The shelter, once blue, had been almost destroyed by wind and time. Grass had grown through a cricket stone. The place looked like memory itself, still standing but not fully alive. She pushes the broken gate and stepped inside. Dust, old smell, silence. Most room had been cleaned out or rent, but the back room to still hold piece of a life. A chair with a one leg, bag, a rusted lamp, a shelf, a wall marked by the children pencil lines showing by heighted across years. Illness student frozen before these loan. There were name. One was damaged to read. Another said, Mavi, her whole body went weak. This was not a guess anymore. The word back of the photo, the same word, the same house, the same hidden past. She touched the wall as if the children who once stood there could still feel. Then she heard footsteps outside. She turned fast, far rising again, but it was not a for safari man. It was a same. A same stood in a doorway with the face fully of angry and fear. She should not be a hair. Ilni stopped closer. Then tell me why. Isam did not answer at once. Her eyes moved around the ear rooms as if objects stuffed with the memories. Some doors were shut for a reason, because Ismi that hide the truth, because truth destroy, lies destroy too. Ismi voice grow sharper. You think coming here with your brave face will fix what you will place did. You know nothing. Then tell me something. Ismi's silence broke in a different way then, not with words, with tears. She tried to hide and failed. Ilni saw it. For the first time, she saw the wind another Ismi haired face. The woman was not simply cruel or cold. She was carrying something unable. Who I am, Ilni whispered. Ismi closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they held pain to thee for a smile answer. You are someone the past should have left alone. That was all gave. Then she turned and left. Ilni wanted to run after her, but her leg would not move. She sank slowly into the older chair and cried for the first time since arriving the village. Not because she felt weak, because she now not ever life. She wasted to these people more tightly than was feared. By the next morning, word had spread to Ilni had a scene at a blue house. Now the village truly began to spelt in a feeling. Some grow crisis, some grow angry, some old women matured that buried signs were rising. Younger people who know less about the past started asking their own parent questions. Fari hated that. He preferred truth buried. Buried truth made room for a man like him to shape stories however they liked. He called Ismi to meet him. Their meeting happened in a courtyard behind these house where wall blocked outside eyes. Ismi arrived tenses, already tired from too many sleepless nights, suffering watched to by the fox watched weekend bird. You saw the girl, he said. She is not a girl. You know what I mean? Ismi voice stayed cold. What do you want? The truth, or at last were your version? Ismi stopped closer. You have used enough for this family pain for your own game. Safari smiled slightly, and yet we are again living inside old man. Ismi hated him because he enjoyed weakness in other. He had always been like that he did not want to peace unless peace right him. He did not want to just unless just knelt before him. He know that too many secrets and so-called silence like it was a gold. She cannot stay. Safari said, "You think I don't know that, do you? Because I see far in you. Is me real fear, the kind that comes when they died knocked on the door. Ismi grabbed in his collar before she could stop herself. Don't speak of the dead. He did not flaunt the control living. When she left him, her hand was shaking at the harbor. Adil also felt things changing. Men who used to speak openly now stopped when approached. Someone had cut one of his wardrobes in the night. Another insult he had been painting near his family storage area. It was a message. Trouble was a building for a more than one sided. He knew Ilni's search was connected. He found her later near the cliff road where the sea could be seen below like a torn silver. You should not have gone alone to that house, he said. I found the word Mavi. It was written on the wall. Adil face tired. Then leave now. No. This is not courage anymore. This is madness. No, this is my life. She stepped right up to him, then eyes but steady. Something happened to me here. People know it is me, know it. You know enough to be afraid, so don't tell me to talk away from our own beginning. Adil had no answer ready because she was right, and because hearing her say my own beginning, it hit something deeply human inside him. He know what he meant to leave half broken, my things never explained. He know what silence could not. He know accurately of a life where other keep your story away from your as you if you are not too weak carry it. He softened without meaning to. They do not go everywhere alone, he said. It was confusion, not a promise, but it was a care. Ilni noticed. Why do you care so much? She asked again. This time he did not look away quickly enough. Because I have seen what is this village does when fear rules. That is still not a full answer. No, he said quietly. It is not. There a closeness grow after that, not in a loud romantic way, not a dramatic word, but in a smaller way that matter more. Adil began showing up near place Ilni want. Something by chance, something not. I brought her tea, and when the night turned to colder and warned her watch rode to avoid once a room door without telling her until she noticed. Ilni in turn began drawing word out of him, but almost no one else could. She made him speak of his mother death, his burden inside fight, and life he once wanted to before duty swelled it. One evening that set on our turnboat while the sky burned orange and pink over the water. Ilni said, when I was a little I used to dream of the sea. Even I thought I grew up far from it. I always thought it meant freedom. Now I think it may be meant memory. Adil listened. She added, do you ever think some people belong to place even when that place never loved them back? Adil answered after a long pause, yes. I think some people are tried to place by pain more than love. She looked at him. And you? I stayed because living felt like a sudden too warm. He gave a better half smile to people who run too much. And if you had meet a different life, I would not know what do you with it. She smiled softly. Then maybe you would. That look between them holds something anew. Not yet a love, but the kind of feeling that comes before love has a courage to say its name. But in a village like this, dreadness never grow alone. It grow beside dangerous. That same night, one of Safari men broke into the guest house yard and searched Ilni's things. He found the photograph and necklace. When Ilni discovered to the mess where changed to Safari, someone was not only watching her, they are hunting her history. Adil come as soon as she went to word. They took nothing, Ilni said, holding the torn bag. They wanted to see what I had. Who else know about the photo? Only you. And maybe Ismi guessed something. Adil faced darkness. Then this is worse than I thought. He wanted to move her somewhere. Safari She refused to hide the argued. The argument began with straightforward but turned personal. You cannot protect me from everything, she said, and you cannot fight shadow with a bare hand, he replied. Stop deciding what I should do. Stop acting like pain make you impossible to hurt. For a moment they stood too close, but angry, both shaken. The Ilnin voice broke. I am already hurt. That ended was the argument. Adil stepped back as if their pain had touched him directly. He saw how too long she was, how much strange it took for a not a collapse. Without thinking he reached for her hand. She let him. No speech came after that. No one needed. Two people can say very deep things without speaking when they began spending morning together. The harbor. Adil taught her the name of wine trent and fishing sign. Ilni told him stories from the life she had lived away from the sea. He laughed more now, not all the time, but enough for the other. Noticed she rested more deeply when near him, not because he removed her pain, but because he made pain easier to carry. One night, sitting beside the water where so much had begun, Adil said, do you still hate this place? Ilni thought carefully before answering. I hated what was hidden here. I hated what was done here, but the place itself, no. I think the place was sick, is was silence. Maybe now it has a chance. And you? I have chance too. He took her hand. Stay. She smiled. Ask better. So he did. Not with you a grand speech, not with a ring for a nowadays, just with a deep honest. And she had to always pull from him. Stay with me, he said, not because you or the this village anything, not because the past robbed you. Stay because we can build something better than what built us. Ilni looked at him with tear gathering again, but this time they came with joy too. Yes, she said, I will stay. The sea stretched before them, the dark and endless, and a leaf it had cried to secrets, swelled, cried, and listened to the lies for a many years. But now the truth he had finally resigned higher and more fire. The sea had overfollowed not a destruction alone, but in a revelation. And in that village where a storm once ruled every heart, two people stood at the shore, not a victim of all pain, but as the first sign that another kind of life was possible, not perfect, not easy, but true. People often think that once truth comes out, peace begins with the next day. But that is not how life works. Truth opens the door, yes, but after that, people still have to walk through it. Some do, some refuse, some stand, some the middle of for a long time because they do not know how to live without old anger. The village now stood exactly in that place. Everything had a changed, but not everything had a held. Some families had accepted what happened to Ilni and lowered their eyes in a shame, but some tried to act normal as if daily if life would wash away to some silence. Others still worshipped that too much true had a damage the village more than the original lie. That is the stranger way of broken place. Even after seeing pain clearly, some people still blame the person who uncovered it. Ilni understood that now. She no longer waited for everyone accepted her. She no longer walked the street hoping to be a seen kindly. That wish her left her. In this place came something stronger. She had finally learned that peace does not always come from a being welcomed something, that it come from a no longer asking permission to exist, and that change could be a seen in her face. She moved throughout the village with quiet strength. She helped at the harbor when needed. She sat with older women when they wished to talk. She visited the blue house again, but this time not a frightened scarecrow. This time she entered like someone reclaiming lost ground. She opened window, cleared dust, touched the damaged wall, and slowly began making the wall breathe again. When Adil first saw her with shelves rolled up, moving broken things into the yard. He leaned against the gate and watched in silence. You are the rebuilding it, he said. Ilni looked over the shoulder. I am deciding whether it deserved another life, and it depends, she replied. Will you help, or will you just stand there and act serious? For a first time in many days, he laughed openly. That laugh mattered more than either of them said. He stepped inside and picked up all wood without another word, and so they began. What they were fixing was not only house, they were fixing a memory. Each board lifted, each broken object clear, each wall clean for a dam and decay felt like a small answer to all years told from Ilni. The house had once held fear, loose and silence. Now it held to movement, work, breath and future. People noticed at the first watched for a broad circus and insured, then one want to broad bright, another offered the paint. One old man came, was told and said only a house near the sea should not die standing. After that more help came, not from everyone, not enough to matter. That was how change entered the village now, not with speech, with hand. No trouble had not fully ended. At the first they watched from the road circus and ensured. Then one woman brought the bread, another offered point. One old man came with the tolls and said only a house near the sea should not die standing. After that more help came, not from everyone but not enough to matter. That's why how change entered the village now, not with speeches, with hands. Still trouble not fully ended. Swari had to survive with the fire and fall, but his father was broken. Yet broken power is often the built power. He no longer commanded the village the same way, but he still had loyal men and sharp tongue. Worse, he had nothing left to protect except pride, and pride without power because dangerous in a smaller ways. He began spreading one final poison. He said Ilni had not returned for a truth but for property. He said Adil was blind by love and being used. He said not rebuilt house was not only start, the soon one family would use the sympathy to take land and position from the other. These lies did not grip the whole village, but they reached enough ear to make a cracks. Adil wanted to confront him again. Ilni stopped him. No, she said, he wants your anger because anger it is a language he understands the best. He is still taking like nothing has changed. This is because she has not changed. So I should not nothing. She stepped close and placed a hand against his chest. No, you should not. You something harder. He found what live in a front of him. Adil looked at her with the start same deep look he often had when she said something that sounded simple but carried real weight. You make difficult things sound easy, he said. They are not easy, she replied. I am only tried for giving him our peace. That night those words stayed with him. Adil had spent much of this word reacting threat, protect, fight, in short, strike back if need. That had been this way because village had taught men that love must be a guarded to a tributary, but Ilni was teaching him another kind of stranger, not weakness, not surrender, control. And control is often harder than range. Days turned into the week. The blue house began to look alive again. The old shelters were repaired, the inner rooms were cleaned, a new table was brought in, the child height mark on a black wall was a preserved, not insured. Ilni chose the dead herself. When Asim saw the mark still, they stood above from for a long time. I thought you would cover them, she said quietly. Ilni answered, no, I spent too much of my life with things hidden. Ismi nodded slowly. Their relationship remained delicate. Some days they could talk clammy, some days pain said to close, and then sun returned. But even that silence has changed. It not longer felt like a wall, it felt like two wanted people standing in a same room without pretending. Afternoon, Ismi came crying warped bundle. I found this year ago, she said. I kept it because I did not what else to do. Inside was a tiny blue ribbon, old and faded, clearly meant for a child. Ilni held it as if it might break in her hand. My mother's, she asked. Ismi swelled hard. She tied it in your hair the last day I saw the together. Ilni eyes filled immediately. For a second, anger rose again, hot, sharp fear. So many years, so much was kept from here. You behind Ismi face stood another truth too. This woman, he cried, quite like punishment for a long, then anymore. No. Ilni did not say thank you right away. The moment was too fully for neat word. Insist, she asked, why did you keep it? Ismi answered with painfully honesty, because I was afraid one day someone would ask me to prove that you were real. That answer broke something open between them. Not fully, not forever, not enough. Ilni took the ribbon and said, I was real all along. Ismi nodded to Rare, gathering yes, and we failed you. The hardest part of healing is that it does not remove what happened, it only changes what people do with it now. Ilni understood that better every day. At the harbor, Adil also faced change. Some men respected him more for standing beside Ilni through the storm. Others thought love softened him. One even said openly, you used to belong to the sea, now you belong to a woman. Adil answered without shame, a man who cannot stand beside the woman he loves belongs to the nothing. That ended the talk quickly. Ilni heard about it later and smiled for a long time, but love between them did not become a sweet every hour. Their closeness brought it on hard moment. Adil sometimes became overprotective without meaning to. Ilni, after year to uncertainty, sometimes pulled away when life felt too stable, as if peace itself made her nervous. They both cried one that could not disappear just because they loved each other. One evening, this tension finally rose into the world. Ilni had gone along the upper road to meet an old woman who claimed to know more about her mother's final years. When she returned after dark, Adil was waiting outside the house, angry and frustrated. You want alone again? I want to speak someone, not to start aware. You should have to told me. I am not a child. I know that. Then stop treating me like one. He's just trying. I am trying to keep yourself, and I am trying to breathe. The silence after that hit hard. Adil turned away first, frustrated with himself and with the fire that still controlled him. Whenever Ilni disappeared beyond this sight, Ilni too felt the old uh, rising inside her. Being watched too closely, touched the same wind as a being controlled. Neither wanted to hurt to the other, but pain speak quickly. It feel entered the threatened letter. That night, Adil returned. He did not come with excuse. He came with truth. I was wrong, he said. Ilni stood by the open window listening. He continuously, every time I think I might lose. I become someone I do not like, not because of you, because of old fear inside me. But that fear is mine to carry, not yours to pay for. Ilni turned toward him slowly. That mattered because apologies are easy when they are only words, harder when they include responsibility. She said softly, and I was wrong too. I know fear does not come from waiting to on me, it comes from loving me. Adil stepped closer. I do love you. He smiled sadly. I know. Then she added, we both need to learn a life that is not ruled by losing. That lines stay with both of them, a life not ruled by losing. That became, without them planning it, the shape of their future. By late summer, the village was visible different. Fishermen from sides of the field worked together more often. Children crossed all visible border without being called back as sharply as before. People still argued, yes, but the argument no longer as carried the weight of the inheritance where some want had finally stopped to bring passed down family trial. The biggest sign of change came during the Sea Blessing Festival, an old yearly tradition that had nearly died because the feud made shared celebration impossible. This year, for the first time in many years, both sides agreed to hold it together. The scare filled with tables, lamps, music, and food. Women cooked through the morning, men repaired the stage, children ran valid with the happy noise. Older people watched the carefully, almost unable to trust what they are seeing. Ilni stood at the edge of the all, taking it in. This is used to happen, she asked. Adil stood beside her long ago before the hate. He knocked before the began to feeding it. Isam joined them for a moment for a once. There was a coldness how she stood near Ilni, only tried to gentleness. Your mother loved it this festival, Esme said. Ilni thought tried you remember that. I remember many things now that I wish I had spoken sooner. Music began, light warmed the secure. People who had not danced together in years slowly moved closer to the center. Then something accepted to happen. An elder woman called Ilni forward and tried to the old founded blue ribbon around the latrine handle near the front, saying, "Let loose children become a found blessing." The scare want to quiet. Ilni eyes filled at once. No long speech followed. None was the needed. The moment itself said enough. The village it is in perfectly way was beginning to place her not in shame, not as scary, but in a blogging. Adil looked at her then with so much love that she felt it like a warmth through her whole body. Later, when the music softened and most people were lost in a comfort of shared life, Adil led her down toward the quieter edges of the beach. The latent light straight to behind them like warm star. They stood where water touched the stand in a slow ways. I have been thinking, Adil said. That sound dangerous. He smiled for me. Yes, she laughed. Then his face turned serious again, but not dark, gentle, serious, hopefully serious. I do not want to love you only inside serving, he said. I do not want us to be a story that ended with a pain and then stopped. I want morning, work, noise, peace when the we can get it. I want the ordinary life that people like us are too often dented. Ilni listening without moving. He took a breath and kept moving. She asked me once what I would to do I meet a different life. I did not know then. I know I would choose it. I am choosing it with you. Tears reached her eyes before he even finished. He did not kneel. That was not who he was. Insist he simply hold both her hands. He asked in a clearest way possible. Build that life with me. Ilni let the sound of sea fill the silence first. This sea had taken so much from her, and yet it had also returned her to herself. She looked at Adil, at the man who had first won her away from pain and then worked beside her straight into it. The man who had changed not by becoming perfect but by becoming honest. The man who loved with protection, yes, but now also with respect. And she answered the only way that fed the life they had fought for. Yes, I will build it with you. He kissed forehead first, then he lips, and this time there was no fear hiding behind the redness, only future. For behind them the village light flicked softly, ahead of them the dark weather rolled on without end. The scene no longer felt like a place of our buried cries. No, it felt like a witness, witness to lose, witness to truth, witness to love that became too late but came real. And as the waves moved over the shore again and again. Ilni understood something fully at last. Her story had not begun with the night she was stolen. It began the moment she returned and refused to